We're just a few minutes late here, but I'll start with attendance, and it looks like everybody's here. So noted?
So noted.
So noted. And we'll open up item number 2 for public comment. If you're here to make a public comment on any of the issues that are in front of us today at the Design Review Board, I'd welcome you to come up to the podium, the microphone, your name and address, and then we give you 3 minutes to state your comments, please. Hi.
Good afternoon. This is regarding the 1975 Orchard Lake Road commercial building.
And your name and address, please.
I'll get to that. Please note that a correction to the name on the agenda is KDB, Kalana Design Build, rather than KMD,
Thank you.
Okay.
as
thank you.
listed.
Thank you.
I'm Sandy Schmidt. I own the adjacent residence at 1975 Wellington Avenue. I have fairly frequent chats with Marvin Clano regarding the history of the Orchard Lake Road property, and he has shared some of their visions regarding various steps in the rebuild. My specific comment this afternoon is regarding the required fence. The proposal for the privacy fence with shrubbery flanking the length of the fence between the two properties, Orchard Lake Road and Wellington Avenue, as illustrated in the included rendering, looks good. I'm looking forward to the return of privacy with the installation, and thank you for working with me. We are all looking forward to the completion of the updates and the revisions to the Orchard Lake Road building, and extend best wishes on successful establishment of your design business at this location. Thank you. That's my public comment.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Tarnowski. I live at 6579 Alden Drive in West Bloomfield, Michigan. I am currently the president of the Temple Bethel Board of Trustees, and I'm here to give some comments on the Enclave project that's later on the agenda. I guess I'll start with saying I learned about this project, the sale, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago from other congregants. I was a vice president at the time when I learned about this. We had lots of discussions about it, deep discussions, and I have to say my primary responsibility for Temple Bethel is the fiduciary responsibility. And when we learned about this potential sale, it looked very good and reasonable to us. We had overwhelming, if not, I can't remember if it was unanimous support, but if it wasn't, it was near unanimous support from the board of directors. And when we brought it to the annual meeting of the temple about a year ago, it passed without any concerns. So the congregation is in full support. This would be really enabling financial sustainability for the congregation. It's very important to us from that perspective, number one. Number two, because of everything going on in the world, but especially now, we have some concerns about security. The woods that are on the north side of our property, yes, they are very nice to look at. We all love green space. I would love parks and green space in my neighborhood too. But from a security perspective, that's just uncontrolled area. It's a concern to us. And so this is, to us, it's I'd say a fringe benefit of the project. The money is desirable. It will help us sustain our future. But the enhanced security is a big plus. Number three, I would say, looking at the plans for the development, it looks beautiful to me. I think a number of our congregants would actually be interested in moving there. I think it's a great opportunity. I looked at the plans relative to some of the other similar developments in Bloomfield Township, and it looked to me, the density looks reasonable and comparable. The plans look beautiful. The units look beautiful. I was thinking of actually recommending one of the units to my brother-in-law. So I think this is a great project for the community. I think it's a win-win. I understand some of the concerns from some of the neighbors, but I have to, again, look out for Temple Bethel's interest. And if I were a neighbor, I don't believe I would be opposed. It looks like a beautiful neighborhood, and I'm in full support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Deschner. Live at 6924 Cedarbrook. I'm one of the concerned neighbors. I just want to say a few things. The residents of Birmingham Farms, from everyone I've talked to, most of us oppose this development, the enclave. Unfortunately, our HOA decided to turn on us and originally opposed it, and now, after having secret meetings behind our back with Robertson Brothers, decided to negotiate without telling the rest of our subdivision about this development. The majority of our 367-unit subdivision does not know anything about this. Everyone I've talked to knows nothing. I live directly behind these woods. I can tell you that we get frequent flooding. We have aquifers that go underneath our property. I have a double lot that I can't even build on half my lot because an aquifer runs through it. The people behind me, they have 2 sump pumps. They have standing water in their culverts all the time. How do I know it? There's cattails growing in their culverts. Cattails only grow in standing water. It is constant flooding, constant there. How are Robertson going to deviate all that? They said these condos are going to have basements. Well, I hope these people, including your family, likes to have water damage because, and I hope they have a lot of money in flood insurance because there's going to be a lot of flooding there with those aquifers running through there. The whole time our HOA controlled the narrative, they limited who knew about the development and negotiated without the input of the residents. They originally opposed the development, like I said, but then had secret meetings with Robertson with concessions that as long as they didn't get any opposition from the residents, myself and the rest of the people here, they were going to build us new signs. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sell my neighborhood out for signs. I've had our signs, I've lived there 20 years, our signs looked horrible for 20 years. Guess what? My property value still goes up. We're in Bloomfield. It always goes up. Pay your tax bill. Even, I do. You got them. I paid them. Do you, Pete? If I could have my time, thank you.
Excuse me,
Okay,
please.
yes, thank you.
Keep your comments to
We
the
have
board.
just a public comment. Let's give them the rights and the ability to make your
I
comment,
appreciate it,
please.
Mr. Supervisor.
Any back and forth, you can take it
Right.
outside.
Even members of their own board didn't even know they were doing this. We know this because we've been told from the member that they had no idea that they were negotiating behind our backs. The HOA, they don't have the authority to do this. We are not an HOA that puts a lien on your house if you don't pay your dues. They're nominated by succession. They're there to take care of the green spaces and collect dues for a Halloween parade we have every year. Maybe a block party. I used to host a block party for 5 years. We have 3 former presidents that are in the HOA that all oppose this. They've never once confirmed them, my wife being one of them. We also found out that, we view this as discriminatory practices against our less affluent community. We're not millionaires. We're not, $1 million CEOs living in a $2 million house. You guys already had the Boo School development that took away a green space behind Cathedral, which caused a lot of flooding all over Cathedral, still to this day. And now you're taking away another green space. And I know it's the Temple space, but you're being bad neighbors. You're being bad neighbors. All right? Again,
We're just
as of
about
right now, we have
3
100.
minutes, so could you just wrap it up?
I'm wrapping it up in this last one. Just to let you know, as of right now, we have 146 signed voters. Residents are opposed to this. And they're going to remember who supported us and who didn't. That's all I have to say.
And your name again, sir, was?
It's Mark Deschner.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Joan Dunbar, and I live at 7196 Glengrove Drive in the subdivision, and I'm also one of the concerned residents. I am a longtime resident of Birmingham Farms Sub and relocated from California in 1987, so I've been here for a while. We were attracted to the neighborhood by the quality of the schools, the size of the property, the spacious and natural surrounds, and the view of the mature trees, which are right opposite our house, which provide peace and tranquility, despite being right on Telegraph Road. So over time, we encountered and we continue to endure to today the challenges associated with the high water table and the aquifers and the insufficient drainage. It's common for the people on Glengrove Drive to have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on upgrading their drainage and their basement waterproofing. Most houses now, as Mark mentioned, have dual sump pumps, and this is creating even additional challenge to us. The drainage ditches in front of the houses have become bogs, and while the ducks are cute in spring, the breeding ground for mosquitoes is not something we appreciate. The standing water makes it difficult for lawn care companies, and again, as Mark noticed, we actually have cattails and weeds multi-foot high growing in those ditches. This has created quite a hazard for both people and for cars. Just last week, a car drove into one of the ditches because they thought that the surrounding grass was firm. It's not, it's sodden, drove into the ditch and had to be extricated. Also for people, one of our neighbors has put up a little metal fence around her perimeter, her ditch, because she didn't want her family and friends either having the car fall in the ditch or people actually falling in the ditch. This is a serious problem. And to the extent that it is a problem and people realize it, our neighbor who just put their house on the market last month actually had one of the attributes of the house was the dual pump system. And I can tell you, living next door to this neighbor, we have a constant flow of water down the front of the house. I'm not a young chicken, and I have to dig out our ditch constantly just to be able to keep the water flowing so it doesn't spread across to the road. So it was actually, we were dismayed when my husband and I learned about this proposal by Robertson. And I want to point out very, very clearly that we appreciate the rights of Temple Bethel to monetize the land asset they have, and we also understand the security issues that they're trying to
Joan, you can talk to
address.
us, okay?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
And we have no intention of impeding that activity whatsoever. However, we do oppose the scope of the project, the 38 houses, condos, and really the lack of discussion of the mitigation strategies, what this is going to mean to the people in the subdivision. We've already noted that the trees and the woods will be totally desecrated.
Joan, you're at 3 minutes. Could you wrap us up, please?
Yep. All we're going to get is a few evergreen trees. We're going to get the noise, and that's absolutely going to destroy the tranquility of our area. The other part of that is we haven't seen the hydrogeological assessment, so we have no idea what we're heading into, and there's been no evidence that Robertson would ever come forward to help us address that, and we understand that we will probably have to foot the bill for those.
Okay,
So-
thank you, Joan.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm a Bloomfield Township resident, Sheldon Freilich, F-R-E-I-L-I-C-H. Appearing here on behalf of myself and my wife. We live at 6626 Spruce Drive in the Birmingham Farm subdivision. We've been residents since 1987, so we're long-time Bloomfield Township residents. We're also Michigan natives. Very concerned about the proposed Robertson Homes development. I don't see it on the agenda. Maybe it's listed under that Temple Bethel name. but I
Yes,
don't
under
really-
C, site plans.
Pardon me?
C, site plans. Yeah, item number C, site plans.
Oh, I see, okay. Several concerns. One, the first thing we heard of this formal development was I got an email yesterday from the Homeowners Association about today's meeting. So we've got no communication from the township about the details, about the plans. Very concerned about eliminating green space. My understanding is the proposed development will eliminate green space. We don't have enough green space in our township. The Booth development on Wing Lake, as you're all familiar with, took away significant green space. We walked through that area. We really thought the township, working with the developer, would have made sure the green space would have gone into that development. Did not happen. That's one concern. Another concern is during the construction of this proposed development, there's going to be a lot of noise and traffic. Even after the houses go in, that's going to add to a lot of congestion and traffic. Very much in favor of the residential nature of the township and our community, but this seems to be, rather than enhancing it, it seems to like it will cause problems. So we're very, very concerned about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Hi, Effie Steele. I want to start by saying,
Your address, Effie?
oh, I'm sorry, 1387 Club Drive, Bloomfield Hills, 48302.
Thank you.
I am a contributory member to the current strategic plan for Bloomfield Township. I was quite involved. So I would like to remind everyone here that protecting green, blue, the health of the community, and safety of the community are the primary columns. Then I would like to show this little diagram here, which was used as reason why this development should happen. I'm using it as a bad example. This neighborhood has already lost green space north of Cedar Brook to that apartment complex, which sits on top of Telegraph. If you drive past that, there are exactly 6 trees in front of that development. Those people are living on a freeway. Same thing with this development that's being used as a positive example. There are houses right along Telegraph. I hope those people don't get cancer. The rest of it back there looks good. If you look at any communities that are forward-thinking today, there are no houses on major freeways. There aren't. A good example, and I've given it before to this board, is Highland Park, Illinois. Any new developments are a block away from main roads with sufficient green space. And maybe Telegraph shouldn't have hydrangeas, but more evergreens. I understand the needs of Bethel and all other congregations, but I have also come to this trustee board, and you were all knowledgeable prior to the May 21st, that the neighborhood opposed this development. I have communicated with every trustee on the board, including our supervisor and yourself, Andrea, and have stated that we understand Bethel needs money. We now have Oakland County money for parks. We would like to see it dedicated to preserving this green space. If not, we would like the township to buy it, if that's not possible, and retain the green space. We do not want it fully developed so it invites people from other communities and impedes the safety of Bethel. We want Bethel protected, but we want the health of that neighborhood protected. You will be selling away the health of the neighborhood. I've already come to you. And nowhere in the minutes of May 21st was the fact that you all had knowledge of that opposition made public. Instead, you asked, and I'm going to take more than 3 minutes, Supervisor
Effie,
McCready.
you are over 3 minutes, but
Okay,
just
I'm
to be
gonna
polite
make-
to the others waiting.
Okay,
if
I'm
you could
just
wrap
going
it
to
up,
take a
please.
minute here because you know what? This is really important, Mike. Okay? The replacement of the trees will not be equivalent. In addition, Mr. Lauren noted that they have been in contact with the HOA and expect HOA to be supportive of the proposal. Mr. Lauren knows I opposed his green plan.
Thank you,
I asked
Effie.
him to move.
Effie, thank
Yeah,
you.
we're not done. I'll be seeing you at the planning meeting if this continues.
Yes.
And then along the line at the zoning board and at the trustee meetings. There's a lot
Okay.
more to be discussed. I'm sorry, Andrea. But as a member of Bloomfield
you, Effie.
Township, I can't
Thank you.
let this go on.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christina Stafford. I am at 7358 Cathedral. I am both a resident of Bloomfield Township and a member of the Birmingham Farms Homeowners Association Board. I'm here today to show support for the proposed Robertson development. Throughout the planning process, Robertson has shown a willingness to engage constructively with our community. Following a March meeting with adjacent homeowners, Birmingham Farms residents, and the neighborhood board, the board brought forward several concerns to Robertson regarding stormwater management, potential noise, and the impact on neighborhood resources. In response, Robertson made efforts to meet with the parties, listen to feedback, and incorporate changes into their development plans based on the input received. Robertson has shared detailed plans outlining how stormwater runoff will be redirected away from Birmingham Farms, an area that has admittedly experienced ongoing drainage issues. If drainage is successful, this could bring meaningful improvements to our neighborhood as a whole beyond the new development. Another key point in the proposed development is that it is not expected to increase traffic through Birmingham Farms. For residents who prioritize safety and maintaining a peaceful environment, This aspect of the plan was reassuring. In addition to addressing concerns, Robertson has offered investment and enhancements that would benefit Birmingham Farms, including beautification of adjacent areas. Their vision to transform an unsecured vacant property into a well-designed residential community could improve both the appearance and sense of security. While the new homes will not be used as direct comparisons for home values within Birmingham Farms, it is important to note that this development is far favorable than alternatives like commercial buildings or multi-use apartments, which have more significant impact on our property values. Overall, I appreciate Robertson's openness to community feedback and their efforts to work in partnership with us. Thank you for your time and consideration.
My name is James Deutschman. My address is 26515 Scenic in Franklin. I'm a longtime member of Bethel. I was involved with negotiating some of the contracts with, or at least the agreement with Robertson Brothers. I wanted to indicate one of the key things is that the vacant property, which is undeveloped, poses a security risk along the northern border of Bethel. Currently, the eastern, western, and southern borders are developed and secured. And as you may remember, a couple of years ago, we had problems with a person who came in to terrorize the preschool program. Admittedly, he had gone under the property from the southern entrance. We've subsequently increased the security in that regard, but we have no protection on the north. The enclave at Bloomfield provides a very desirable residential development along the northern border. It's also very attractive for Temple Bethel members to potentially move in to be close to their synagogue. It also creates an environment or an improvement to the drainage system based upon all of the documentation that I've seen. That should be a positive thing to the residents adjoining the properties. The other thing is that if this property is left undeveloped, eventually there could potentially be a park, which I don't think is potentially great for children to be playing on Telegraph Road. And finally, leaving the property vacant could result in the property being redeveloped with a much higher density development in the future, and that certainly isn't positive. And most importantly, this is a very high quality and high-end price point for these units, and there should be some enhancement to the property tax revenue to the township, which should provide additional benefits in general for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Nunez. I'm a landscape architect. The address is 30645 Woodgate Drive, principal of Nunez Design, Inc. I'm not retained by Temple Bethel as a consultant. I've volunteered. I'm also not a consultant for Robertson Brothers. I've had the privilege to working with them over the negotiations of this and was the liaison between Temple Bethel and their designer, who I hold in high respect, Tad Creer at Land Design Studio, as far as to work on the plan and make it better. Everything that we've recommended, they've been able to agree to and do willingly. When there was talk about the idea of creating a park on this space, first off, as a planner, we look at the city or the township's current zoning plan, zoned for residential. Then we look at the master plan, which is the long-term future of the community. It's zoned, or it's planned for residential. We also then looked in the master plan for the recreation plan, which there's recreation mentioned, but the recreation that's in the township consists of 5 public or private golf courses, the area around the lakes that are private, and the schools. There are no parks that we could find in the township. So the thing is to create a space, or there is a comment in there that says, township was willing to get donated a piece of property to create a park, but it's economically not feasible. And so the development, as I see it, as far as independent, is one of the best developments I've seen in a long time. Circulation-wise, it works internally. As far as drainage and problems that I heard today as far as in the front of their properties. This is in the rear of the properties. This is downhill. Robinson is looking at accommodating those drainage issues because the development was done when engineering didn't require rear yard drainage. Well, that drainage is going to be coming south onto the property and handled into a large detention basin. Vegetation on site, we've talked about that, or it's been told, it's mixed. There are a couple good trees, quality trees. A lot of them are garbage trees, ash trees, and some of them are dead. But the ordinance has a tree preservation or tree ordinance replacement, which Robinson Brother is planning on doing. The trees that are going to be done, there's going to be quite a few higher quality trees planted around the community. Eventually, it will get to the height and the width that will block other communities as far as the residents to the north and the residents to the south. The other advantage that this is versus a single-family development proposal is that the restrictions are in the common space. You're not going to have swimming pools and ping pong tables and whatever else out in the back of the properties. They're all going to be maintained under one ownership as far as on there versus individual lots.
Ralph, it's 3 minutes. Could you wrap it up, please?
So I strongly support the development. We've also were the planner for the 2 Sunrise Assisted Livings that are in your community. We also had a developer that was looking at this piece of property for another multiple-story facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph.
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Pollan. I live at 7431 Cathedral Drive in the Birmingham Farm subdivision. I was not planning on speaking today because I, along with our HOA president, helped draft the letter that she wrote, so I am in support of the project. What bothered me today is that we tend to live in a society now where people can just come up and speak words into a microphone and they're supposed to believe to be true. We are volunteers. We all have full-time jobs. Being HOA board members is not a full-time job. We are dedicated to making our neighborhood a better place to live on volunteer time. And I know some of the other people in the room have also volunteered their time to do that. So the problem I had was the nefarious nature of some of the comments that we had secret meetings behind closed doors. Information comes at people at different paces. I know the first meeting with Robertson with just the HOA board was to present concerns from the neighbors, and that's what we did. They wanted to work with us. They've been transparent. They want to be good stewards, good neighbors as well. So I have a real issue. I just want to clarify that we are in this to make Bloomfield Farms a pleasant place to live for all their neighbors of different points of view. The last statement I will make is then, I understand that they may be happy with how the communication was handled. And we're always looking for feedback on how to do things better. As the treasurer, and after I found out that they were disappointed with communication to the entire neighborhood, I offered and emailed the group that was in opposition to this development that we could all sit down together, put out a pros list, a cons list, and then send that out to all the neighbors, all 366 homes in their neighborhood. That we can make sure that we are being transparent and that we are seeing both sides of the coin. I was rejected twice by some people in this room. They did not want to meet. They wanted to do it on their own. They have started a petition, which is their right. I really think that they should come forth with the names of the people on the petition, because I wonder how many of those are actually Birmingham Farms residents that have skin in the game, other than living on a different street that I'm not familiar with. I'm more interested in people that are paying taxes to live in that neighborhood and have a real skin in the game there. So wanted to set the record straight that there was nothing nefarious going on. Could communication always be better? Absolutely. When we saw that communication was breaking down, we tried to rectify that, and we got rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Hi, I'm Don Elder, 7145 Glen Grove. Just came from Glen Grove. We've had a little rain. Typically, 365 days a year, we have sump pumps running every 3 or 4 minutes. Water flowing down the ditches. Today, we have floods in the ditches. We have water flowing across Glen Grove. This undermines the road base, it creates more havoc for the infrastructure. I didn't see anything in the Robertson proposal that was gonna mitigate this problem. We're pulling out 500 trees. I think about a third of them are over 100 feet high. All that's gonna do is raise the water table. I just like to say that we need to address the drainage problems in Bloomfield Township, specifically in Birmingham Farms, and I don't think this does that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, public comment, we'll close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes of May 21st, 25 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passed 3-0. Okay. Item,
With a minor amendment that was made by Ms.
you
Schmidt
you had to change the K, the initials on the design.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new item, signs. First item up is 3120 South Boulevard, Orphan and Associates. Corey.
All right, so our first case tonight is a ground sign proposed at 3120 South Boulevard. This shows you where it sits within our zoning map. It's just one parcel zoned office, 01. It butts up against high-density residential and then single-family to the east. To the north is the city of Pontiac. And this is where it sits looking at an aerial. You can see to the north, residential. It's pretty much surrounded on all sides by residential, but differing types. This is the sign as proposed. You can see they're proposing a masonry base. And I believe they've come today and they might have some additional comments regarding their base that they might want to provide. In addition to that, the light will be projected onto the sign. And then you'll notice in the photo that it is set back. This shows it better. There's where the existing sign is. You can see that oval with the landscaping in that lighter gray color, and inside that is the existing monument sign. They're proposing it to be moved a little bit to the east, and the reason for that is because when this was reviewed by our DPW department, they found that there was a line running through there, an easement. So the applicant agreed to move the sign 2 feet to accommodate that. And then these are some site photos from my trip. You can see the landscaped area where the, I guess it's gone now, sign was. It's roughly going to be in that location, but a few feet to the east. And then,
And does it move it out of the way of the easement? Is that what they're trying to do?
yeah, so that's why they're moving it.
And does the sign, it's going to remain about the same size as the other sign?
I believe so. So it's 44 inches by 96 inches. So it meets the dimensional requirements of our ordinance. And then in terms of, we have some requirements regarding logos on signs. We interpreted those eyes to be eyes rather than logos. So we determined that there was no concern with the logos. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to the applicant to discuss the base.
Good evening, or good afternoon, sorry, everyone. My name is Paul Dieters. I am with Metro Signs and Lighting, 11444 Colts Avenue in Warren. And so thank you for your consideration today. And really what we were hoping to do is just to get some clarification regarding the requirement of the masonry base that the board would like. As you know, there are a few different options. One of the ones that our client would like to propose is this synthetic material. If it's okay, may I hand it to the board so you can get a feel for this? Okay, thank you, Corey. And I would like your consideration for this. It's not a cost savings for our client. It's a little bit easier in terms of being able to dig the foundation. Doesn't require as large of a foundation, and we're in an area near an easement to make it a little bit easier. The other thing is with this, to be candid, it's very difficult for us to find masons to do jobs this small. They're in such high demand right now, and this just makes it a lot easier to turn things quicker. This is a material that I think you could see it's handcrafted. It doesn't look plasticky, so from 10 or 15 feet away, it has the same texture, as you can see, where this is real brick. And if it's close to that, you can see it's quite heavy, it looks the same. And it's not something that's cheap, but it's just a little bit more practical from a construction point for us, and we would like the board's consideration of that. Yeah. I'm happy to
Okay, thanks, Paul.
address any concerns or questions.
Have we used this material for other signs before, and have we allowed synthetic material to be replaced for these signs?
Traditionally, I'm not aware of this type of use of material. However, it is up to the purview of the design review board to be able to determine acceptance of a design standard. Our biggest concern would be related to the maintenance and longevity of that material versus a masonry. But obviously, with any approval by the board, they would be required to maintain as is anything that's approved. And also, we would request, and I know Corey's already had the conversation about requiring some low-lying landscaping. Traditionally, we have required a mason or stone-type base. However, that's not a directive that's directly in our ordinance. However, under the purview of the design review board, looking at the designs and the materials, that's kind of up.
So when they do the brick, how far down into the ground do they have to go? Paul, how far down do you have to go for a foundation?
There's a foundation drawing there. This sits on a center pole, so we would usually dig out a few inches below.
And that's as far as you're going?
And then we set a base pad there. And then the landscaping, if there were to be some landscaping requirements around it, the number one concern is if a lawnmower hits these.
Well, I was thinking of that, or a snowplow comes by, and they're moving too fast, because we've had that in the township. They come by and boy, they take out fencing, for instance.
Certainly, and this is a very durable. It's a heavy-duty material that lasts a long time. It's got a coating on it to withstand the elements. The other piece is where this is going to be located. It's a long way from the entry drive, and it's a long way back from the road. So I don't think the snow plows in this circumstance, and maybe in others it would be more applicable, but I don't think so in this case.
You don't think it won't bother it?
No, that will not.
Okay.
No, it's not a concern.
Any other questions?
I have a few, yeah. Just to confirm, it meets all requirements, so the setback requirements, the size requirements.
Correct.
There's no wall sign?
There's no wall sign as part of this application. So I'm not aware of any other wall sign. They've applied for a ground sign.
And with regard to the logo, or not logo, I've interpreted the I not to be a logo. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
Because it fits as letters within the name, we determined that it was letters.
I also want to make a comment, sorry to interject here, but unfortunately, our ordinance doesn't give us does not have, we don't regulate logos for ground signs. It's specific to wall signs only, so the interpretation of logos on ground signs is not part of our review.
Okay, so whether it's a logo or not doesn't change the fact that it's a compliant sign?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm fine, by the way, with the other material. The design looks nice. It's not structural either, right? You've got, those are the...
That's correct. The center pole is the structural element, and that will bear all the load of it. It's really decorative.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I move to approve as presented with the addition of the revised materials for the, it's not bricking. Base.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, 2448 Franklin Road, DPT Physical Therapy. Corey.
All right, so this is another sign. This time it is a wall sign. This is where it sits within our zoning map. You can see that red area is a commercial district. To the north is that recreation space we've been dealing with, and more office space to the east. Within our aerial, you can see it sits within a strip mall development. There's a lot of strip development along that intersection of Telegraph and Square Lake. And here is the proposed sign. Here is the proposed sign as it would sit within the building. According to our analysis, it meets the required size, and the logo is less than 6%. These were the measurements we used. And then it will be internally lit with an LED. And then I also provided photos of other signs on that same property so you can get an idea of how it kind of fits within the development. You'll notice some of the signs are in poor condition. We have gotten our ordinance team on that, so that will be addressed. And they'll be adding it to that far easterly tenant space
Yeah,
And there it is.
looks good. Okay. Any questions?
Done.
No.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve as submitted.
Support?
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. Item B, site improvements, 1975 Orchard Lake Road. And I want to get the initials right. It is KDB. Okay, thank you. Design. Corey.
All right, so our next address is 1975 Orchard Lake Road. You can see it sits within a commercial strip there, directly to the, I guess that's southeast, where, directly to the southeast is a residential property. However, it is zoned commercial, so the property in question doesn't abut any residential directly. However, it does abut properties that are residentially used. This is where it sits within, looking at an aerial off of Orchard Lake Road. It's right there at that intersection. And then they're proposing several site improvements, so I'll run through the list. The first is landscaping, so they're proposing arborvitae along that south property line where they abut that resident, as well as they've agreed to extend it along Wellington. So you can see where the blue line is the fence at the south side, then there's green arborvitae along the perimeter. There's gonna be hydrangeas along Wellington and where the building sits, and then some additional screenage at the south of the parking lot area. In addition to that, they're seeking approval for mechanical units, 2 AC units and 1 generator. You'll see they're at that south west corner of the structure. It's kind of hard to see on there, where they will be shielded from view with arborvitae and a fence and by the existing structure on site. They're also proposing a fence. I think I have, this is what the fence is proposed to look like. It'll be 6 feet and it'll be composed of vinyl composite, and it'll provide a buffer between the proposed development and the residents to the east. And then let's see. For the parking lot, they're proposing to seal coat it, and they're gonna be adding parking spaces. So we worked with them to get them properly dimensioned and the correct number. So we used the calculation for a professional office and determined that 6 spaces were necessary. State and federal law requires at least 1 to be ADA. So they've agreed to all that, and they provided them in the correct dimensions. And they agreed to stripe the parking lot once it is seal coated. And then lastly, they are proposing a black awning on the front of the building to create some aesthetic improvements. In addition to this, we reviewed some minutes from previous meetings to make sure that we weren't introducing any new issues that were addressed previously. So we reviewed the minutes, found the concerns issued by the neighbor concerning the trees, some at the intersection of Orchard Lake and Wellington, and we found that the new proposal does not reintroduce those problems. So in terms of landscaping, it should be compliant with our ordinance and agreeable to the neighborhood. And then here's some more renderings that they provided. And then I conducted some site visits the other week, so this gives you an idea of what the property looks like today.
Variances.
Sorry,
Variances.
Thanks,
Fence. Height.
I didn't really need one.
Okay, go ahead.
Corey, let me ask you a question. When you started, and I've gone by this, it's going to be very nice, but I know it's Sandy who came up first to speak. Her house is right behind them.
Correct.
And is that, her house considered a commercial area as well, not residential?
So yeah, that was something we realized when we were doing research for this meeting. So if you look at the zoning map, that property directly to the east, it's zone commercial.
Sandy's aware of that. I think she was equally surprised when she learned of it.
It's a little unusual.
Very. Potentially.
Well, I recall this, I mean, we reviewed this before, we had some concerns, you know, and I mean, Ms. Schmidt brought those to us before, and it appears to me, I wasn't there, but it appears to me that the developer, the owner, KDB Designs, have worked together, they've got an agreement, it complies with our requirements.
Yes.
And I think the design looks great, so thanks for working out the details and coming to an agreement, and so I don't need to go through any more details of having seen it before.
No, I've driven by there multiple times throughout the construction, and I think it looks great.
I move,
So, yeah, go ahead.
I move we approve as presented.
Support.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thanks. Looks great.
Item number 2, 3695 Lincoln Road, St. Regis Parish.
I'm gonna change the temperature here.
It's nice, isn't it?
All right, so
It's very comfortable.
our next request is for a proposed fence at St. Regis Parish. Here's where it sits within our zoning map. It is zoned R1, single-family residential, which is typical for educational establishments. To the north and to the east is also similarly zoned to R1. To the south and to the west is R3, which is just a slightly more intensive single-family district. This shows you where it sits within an aerial. It sits primarily within a neighborhood setting. So we'll start here. So they're proposing a aluminum black fence, as seen in this image, to replace the existing gray aluminum or chain link fence that is currently on site, seen in these photos here. It runs along that road to create a buffer between the kind of school area and the road. They're proposing to enhance it with a nicer fence, aluminum, 6 feet tall. One kink that did come up in our review is that it was determined, working with DPW, that the existing fence and therefore the proposed replacement fence is sitting within the right-of-way of the township. But working with DPW, it was determined that they can proceed as long as some conditions are met, of which the applicant is agreeable to. Primarily, they need to get a right-of-way permit. And then I believe I passed out letters for you all to see. That's just the letter from DPW, letting you know what those conditions are. So I think that's all I had for this case. Sorry.
Any questions? I guess the only one that catches my eye is the fence around the fire hydrant, and that they've got that figured out.
They're gonna, yep.
Okay. Any questions?
No, it looks like an improvement to me.
Yeah.
As long as they comply with the
Nice.
things from engineering.
Yep, looks great. So I'll take a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve as presented, subject to the conditions enumerated in the staff memo from Adam Poulter. And any other, I guess, any other, conditions that are required? No? Okay.
Okay. Then I will support the conditional approval.
All right, having said that, we have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? No, passes. Thank you. Okay, good luck with your fence. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, since it's in the right-of-way, we can't require it to go before the zoning board for the height.
Okay,
That's why I was saying there's no other conditions.
got it.
Okay, thank you. Item number
Let's
3,
get the permit, though.
Yeah.
1011
Right
Gulf
away.
Drive, Consumer Energy. Corey?
All right, so Consumers Energy has reached out to us about replacing one of their existing substations, or regulator stations. Let me get a photo real quick, 'cause I think it helps illustrate. This is the existing conditions. So the entire property is just open lawn, and then this one little utility building on it. It's this kind of corner parcel. So the applicant is Consumers Energy, and they are simply seeking to replace the building with something more modern and durable. Going back to the start. So this is where it sits within our zoning map. It's at Gulf Drive and Wagner Avenue. You can see it's in that industrially zoned district, and it's that, there's a building on there, but it's mostly undeveloped, that corner space. And then looking at an aerial, this is where it sits. Across the street is the golf course, and then to the south is kind of more industrial development. So it's pretty
Yeah,
well,
there's nothing there.
there's nothing there in terms of residential, you
Right.
know. Here are the plans as provided. I'm gonna point out the site plan. So the applicant, one of the things that has come up is that because they are at a corner, it is considered that they have two frontages, two front yards. So they're required to maintain a 40-foot setback on both those frontages. The existing structure doesn't meet that, and they're not proposing to meet that. So they will be routed to the ZBA. They've already made application to get variances for those setbacks, but I wanted to emphasize that they're not making it radically worse. They're simply seeking to replace the existing building with an updated building. The building that is proposed is in this image here. It's proposed to have metal siding. And that's it for my presentation.
It's pretty simple. Any questions?
No, anybody here from the applicant? You, oh, okay. So it needs a variance for the setbacks?
Correct.
For both sides?
Both sides is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Will it also need to go to the board as a special land use or site plan?
No, because it's an industrial district, so
Okay.
utilities are by right.
Do we condition our approval on obtaining the variance?
I might not, well,
I think that kind of goes without saying, that they wouldn't be able to construct it without the variance. So I think that kind of is already expressed just through the process. In other words, by use, if you were to approve it today and forward it onto the ZBA, essentially it's the same result.
Okay. Okay. Then I move we accept or approve the plan as submitted.
Okay, support?
And forward to the ZBA?
Do we have to say forward to the ZBA?
We typically
It
do,
helps.
but
Oh, okay, then forward it to the ZBA.
Thank you.
That the approval is conditioned on the
Variance,
obtaining the variance.
thank you.
Or variances
As requested.
that they may need, yes.
Okay.
support.
Support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Item number 4. Good luck, thank you. 1822 Fox River Drive, Coastal Design and Build. Corey.
all right, so the Fox River neighborhood is looking to update its kind of common pool space. And so this is where it sits within our zoning ordinance. It is zoned R1 like the rest of the neighborhood. To the west there, that's the city of Pontiac. This is where it sits within an aerial. You can see to the west is more industrial Pontiac development. To the east is Bloomfield Township and its single-family residential, all of which will be served by this space. So the plan is to provide new pavilions. It's a little hard to see in this plan. I don't know if you can see my cursor,
Yeah,
but
we can.
so there's one proposed pavilion right here. And then there's one proposed pavilion down here. The one up here is about 10 feet set back from the Optic right-of-way. And so for that reason, they will need to secure a variance for that. And the same goes for the other pavilion, which is set back about 30 feet, although I believe the applicant's here with more specific numbers. Let's see. It's to serve the existing pool area. I took site photos last week. There's not much to look at because it's under construction currently. But this is the area it would sit in, the kind of pool area. That photo to the south, that kind of shows you where it's going to be at. And then in terms of design, I apologize, it's off to the side.
Can you flip it?
Let's see.
There. There you go.
Boom. So there you go, that's the design of the pavilion. Both pavilions look very similar. And then I know the applicant is also here if they wanted to add anything to that.
No problem.
My name's Justin Booth with Coastal Pools. So yeah, we have been under construction at the Fox Hills community, their clubhouse, pool space, whatever. This private community that they have, this pool area for us. So they had a large pavilion that was existing when we started the project. And in the initial phase of the project, the plan was just to leave it and they were gonna address like a future new pavilion layout down the road. Obviously, as we've continued through the construction and we've completely blown up the site, then things kind of evolved, conversations started being had, and then we all agreed, okay, well, it might make sense just to do this while we're already there with trucks and machines and whatever. So, Paul, do you know what the size of the old pavilion was?
The old pavilion was 20 by 34 by
14 and a half. Yeah. So it was a much taller pavilion. It actually had like an elevated deck underneath it that was like a step up from the adjacent concrete. Much larger in size, but more importantly, definitely taller. And it was on this goofy angle, as you saw in Corey's photos. The bathroom is kind of on a goofy angle, so I think at the time that the pavilion was built, they kind of like offset that angle to, I don't know, a lot of 45-degree angles out there. So with the new layout, after going back through everything with Horizon Engineering, we're just straightening all that out. These pavilions are all the same. It's like this prefabricated structures. There's 2 different sizes of pavilions that they're looking to do, and I think the most important takeaway is that the height of these structures is about 4 feet shorter than what that existing, well, it's not existing anymore because we tore it down, but what the old pavilion was. This is an irregular lot because they have frontage to Updike, but, you know, realistically, everything is accessed from Fox River. It's a private community, you know, only for the private use of the community members, which also has its own non-conforming issues with it, I guess, right? So really, yeah, what they're looking to do is to put in these new structures as kind of a cherry on top of this project that we're doing, which was, you know, redoing these pools and adding new concrete and such. The other part of the site plan, which I don't know if I just didn't
This is what I got.
specifically call this out. Right. So the only other modification that we were hoping to make, the existing fence line is at the, well, if you consider Updike to be the front, which it's not, the existing fence line came off of the back side of the clubhouse and then went up. It's offset from this neighboring property pretty far, and that's going to remain. The goal would be to actually move the fence to the front. So that's the other thing that we're going to be seeking a variance for at ZBA, is to relocate that fence to the front of the clubhouse instead of in the back. They already have arborvitae plantings. But, yeah, and then it's,
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was reviewed as part of the submittal package. What type of fence and height are you proposing?
same exact fence as what's currently existing, which is Paul, is it 8 foot or 6 foot?
That is a 6 foot.
It's a
So
six-
you want to include that now in this design review, but we haven't had a chance to look at that, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
yeah,
just looked at
I
the
thought that I
pavilions.
put it on there. It's 40
Well, we can
feet.
work with what we've been given today,
Okay.
and then why don't we have them come back with the fence, okay?
We'll get it figured out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the
Because
pavilion.
I'm sure your neighbors want their pool open with the 90-degree
they-
weather coming.
yeah.
So why don't we focus on what's in front of us, okay?
Okay, yeah. that's
Just
no
for me to
problem.
comment too, we'll make sure that it doesn't impede with your current ZBA.
Thank you.
You know,
Yes.
because I'm sure that's probably what you're thinking about. We'll make sure that any information that the board needs, look at it before you go to the ZBA.
Okay, perfect, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, and then you had mentioned distances off of the Updike right away. You're exactly correct. The pavilion that is closest is 10 feet offset. The pavilion that's, you know, tucked a little bit further back is about 28 and a half, almost 29 feet off of that.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, we did, knowing Bloomfield Township very well, I did a nice little landscape sketch here
The arborvitae's.
to show some arborvitae's.
Nice.
And I don't know if this is more a question at ZBA or not, but obviously they would love, because they have that fence and it does kind of mound up in the back. I mean, there is pretty optimal coverage, like by the fence. And again, I know that the old pavilion was a non-conforming structure and that doesn't really matter at this point, but with these newer pavilions, with them being much more low profile, I mean, it already is substantially less than what was there, so. Yeah, the fence along Updike is an 8-foot fence, so.
We'll just deal with the structures.
So you're proposing 2 of these pavilions?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, and they're identical?
Identical in design and aesthetic, not the same in size.
So this is one here.
Technically, there's actually 3, but I think that the third
This is the
one
big
is.
one.
Yeah, there's actually 3, but I think the third one is actually like out of any setbacks or whatever, but I guess if this is just a
The two
variance.
that we need to give you the variance on.
Yeah, so yeah, there is a third. if you
Well, but
pull
we
up
need
that
to,
site
I mean, we need to
Yeah, if you
approve,
could show me.
we need to approve the design,
Design, not the variance.
not the variance. So I see two of them.
So it's one, two is that Corey showed, and that's the third one right there.
So we have schematics.
Oh, there it is, I see it, okay.
Yeah.
We have schematics for this size and this size.
And that might be where the confusion is, because the largest one is in the closest to Updike? No, the largest one is furthest away. It's in the center essentially of the two. The 14 by 25, I believe, or 14 by 25, there's one of those that's adjacent to the bathroom. One of those is the one that's closest to Updike. The one that's adjacent to the bathroom is going to become.
So those,
kinda like-
those two are identical in size?
Correct.
Okay, and these are all the same height?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the material on the top?
Paul from Fox Hills Community could speak better on that.
Okay.
Are you guys familiar with Costco?
Regularly.
Do you know Yardistry, the nice pavilion structure that they often put in the front when you walk in and you see it, and they usually have the nice little couch underneath that you could sit at? It's the same company, same material, so it is an aluminum roof and a cedar posts. The posts are all 6 by 6 or 8 by 8, I believe. This is what the smaller of the ones look like.
Corey, can you plug that in so it pops up so the other people in the audience can see it? Or those
I'll
millions of
try.
Americans watching from home?
I do not.
You can use the good old-fashioned DocuCam.
There you go.
You can.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Corey knows how to
Yeah,
use it now.
yeah.
They taught me a faster way too.
Oh, wow.
Picture of his desktop to send me something that's on the computer rather than taking a screenshot effectively.
I'm getting to that point, so it's okay.
This is what they taught me.
All right.
Flashing.
It's from 1998. It's going to take a minute to boot up.
Ooh, it's a new,
Oh,
ooh,
yeah.
Hey,
Nice.
there you go.
Little kind of,
that's pretty good.
So those are cedar, those are, the structure is cedar?
yes, the structure is fully cedar. And we would have footings underneath every post. So it would be, and it's going to be built where the previous structure we had, which was much larger, was built as Justin shared, was built up about a foot. So besides it being about a 14.5 foot, it was probably about 15.5 feet off the ground. This one is significantly shorter, but we're putting it on, we would be putting it on concrete with footings underneath where all the posts are.
Nice.
Partially because of, we want to make it ADA accessible so that people can get to it easier. Our previous one was not. And the other one that is larger looks identical. The only difference is instead of being a 4-poster, it is 5. You can see that right here. Here is what the 5 looks like. So this one is 14 by 35, where the other one is 14 by 34. There we go. So,
Worked out pretty good, actually.
yeah. The other one was 14 by 25, this one's 14 by 34. So it's about 9 feet longer. And the idea is to provide residents with shade, place to sit down with their families, some comfortable couches, things like that.
Looks very nice.
Yardistry, I'm not a sales rep, they do a really nice job.
I hope they're assembling
I
it for you.
appreciate the plug.
No,
They're doing
neighbors.
They're doing a community
Neighbors.
build on it.
I was wondering,
Yeah.
okay.
Neighbors. Our neighbors are awesome. We're very, very close in
No, I
our
think
neighborhood
it's
because of
great.
our pools.
Just one. So this has to go to the ZBA for what?
All 3 pavilions, because they're all accessory structures.
Got it, okay.
2 of them specifically are considered a frontage. And then it sounds like a fence will also be forthcoming. That probably will need ZBA, but that will have to be presented at a later date. Unless the board
And there's
felt
an existing
comfortable.
fence, so that allows for the pool to be open, so, while we're waiting for the new fence to be approved?
It sounds like, yeah, it sounds like the proposed fence is they're looking for a relocation of the existing location.
Right, just to be clear, I mean, As far as the fence goes, you've got an existing fence, so that
Yes.
the pool could be completed and opened pending the relocation of the new fence, or?
The part of that fence was removed in order to get some of the work done, so we would have to get a temporary up in order to open up the pool. And so the frontage along where the bathhouse is, that had to be completely removed for multiple reasons. One, because of the work that was coming in. Also, that fence, which was a chain link fence and also very outdated, we needed to get it within code. And so the idea was to replace, it had to get replaced because we had to remove it. So that fencing had to get replaced with what we already have, which is the shadow box cedar, 6 foot on the one side, and we were just put it on the other side. And then the other part where the fence is being proposed to be moved forward to the front edge of the clubhouse rather than at the back edge, we had to take that down in order to get some of the work done.
Yeah. I mean, as Corey mentioned, he said maybe we could get in back here by, go ahead.
Yeah, so if we get everything turned around within a week, we
Yeah.
can just bring them right back July 2nd for the next DRB, and it won't affect their ZBA schedule at all.
Because on the ZBA application, I definitely spelled out fencing and all that, so.
We'll double check
Yeah,
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that works for you guys, I can come back with just a better detail on that, so we don't have to,
Okay.
spin our wheels
Are the
today.
pools done?
They're getting very close.
Really close. You can come swim.
Trust
So
me.
so they're not gonna be open by this weekend, because it's gonna get pretty hot.
I know. And I would take you guys in as guests.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up when I'm standing right next to Paul here, in punching distance, but yeah, we are working extremely hard to try. I mean, there's a chance that if we can get the Pebble contractor out there by the end of the week, all the plumbing in the equipment room just got done, electricians
This is
out
being
to
recorded,
fire it
what
up.
are you saying?
Potentially, if the stars aligned and if there wasn't a torrential downpour today, then maybe by this weekend.
Good
Definitely
luck.
by next week.
All right,
All
well,
right.
good luck.
Good luck.
Make a motion.
It's another.
I'll move that we approve as submitted and forward to the ZBA for the required variances.
Thank you. Support? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, pass, so thank you. Good luck.
All right, good luck.
Okay. item-
Those kids want to swim.
Yeah. Item C, site plans, number 1, 7200 Telegraph Road, the Enclave at Bloomfield. Corey?
I was actually going to present on this one.
Okay, great.
I was going to kind of review the proposal. So if you'd like, Corey and I can switch places, and I'd like to
Sure.
go step at the podium.
All right, welcome Andrea.
Is it the same proposal we saw before? I mean,
It is.
Okay, so it
So
can
I
be
was just
fast.
going to do a very brief.
Great.
Okay. So I'm Andrea Bibby, Director of Planning, Building, and Ordinance here at Bloomfield Township. What we have before you is a site plan that you previously saw at your last Design Review Board meeting. This proposal is being brought to you on behalf of Robertson Brothers Homes. As you are somewhat familiar and have an opportunity already to hear my presentation at last meeting, as well as the applicants, but I would like to kind of give a high-level overview of what the proposal is. Robertson Brothers is seeking a site plan application for, and they are choosing to select development under one of our housing options within our zoning ordinance. In this instance, it is the one-family residential cluster housing option. The request, as you can see laid out before you here on the screen, is for a 38 single family dwelling units located just on the northwest corner of 14 Mile and Telegraph Road. In addition to the proposed housing, site improvements include a new detention pond, as you can see in the southeast corner of the site. They also include landscaping, signage with a gate entrance, and 3 new roads interior to the site. The total proposal of the site area is at 12.83 acres. Which includes 5.02 acres, which they are seeking to also include as part of their overall development, which would be taken from the Temple Bethel property. So again, this property is located just north of Temple Bethel. It's currently vacant. As in part of our roles and responsibilities in the planning division is we take in an application, and what we do is we look at our zoning ordinance to see how a proposal does or does not comply with the standards within our zoning ordinance. And then we also submit any plans that we receive, and they are circulated either internally to our engineering staff. We also have landscape consultants as well as a wetland consultant. So I just want to preface this with the fact that we did, prior to coming before the design review board, we do have these site plans viewed and reviewed by our various internal as well as external consultants. So with that, I do want to point out that with this proposal, there are a host of variances that will be required. Specifically, within our cluster housing ordinance, in which is the development standard that the applicant is choosing to select to develop under, due to the layout and design of this development, it has brought forth some variances that would have to be granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals in order for them to continue. The first off is within the cluster housing development option, we do allow for the ordinances written in a manner in which first of all, they have to be off a thoroughfare of approximately 150 feet or larger. So our ordinance is actually written in a way that the township directed these type of cluster-style developments closer to the major thoroughfares such as Telegraph or Woodward. And that is why one of the requirements in our cluster housing is off a major thoroughfare. So I do want to point out that that's actually intentional, that a development like this would be located off a road like Telegraph. However, in terms of the density, our ordinance does define a density stating that within the first 360 feet back from Telegraph Road, the applicant or the ordinance allows for 3.2 dwelling acres per unit. And in the western portion of the 360, they would be permitted to have 1.7 units per acre. So the intention of this provision would be that there would be higher density or maybe attached units towards the front, and then that there would be more of a single-family style dwelling, lower density, kind of feeding into that existing residential in the rear. However, I do want to state this ordinance, it was written in a manner that they were looking to favor possibly an attached type of style of development. In this instance, the applicant is seeking to take that density calculation, and instead of defining it in the way that our ordinance does by moving all 38 units and having a higher density near Telegraph and then a lower density towards the rear, the applicant has presented a proposal which would need a variance to allow for them to have a higher density calculation towards the rear of the site. So hopefully that's not too complicated, but our ordinance is written in a way that it is intended to have a denser portion towards the busier road, and then to kind of slowly develop more into a single-family style development. In this instance, they are not proposing any attached units. These are all proposed to be single-family, one-story residence. Beyond that, the ordinance does state, the cluster housing ordinance does state that houses have to be, the overall land size for a cluster development would be 10 acres. In this instance, the resultant property would be at 12.83 acres, so thus a variance would be required to exceed the maximum 10 acres for cluster housing. Also, in addition to that, there are some variances as it relates to the variances for front yard setbacks. The intention, and again, I'm going to defer a lot of this to the applicant, as they will be, they are here to present their proposal, and they can certainly walk you through the rationalization for the design for the proposal. What I'm simply trying to do is respond to the requirements within our ordinance on behalf of the township. However, so will be seeking variances for up to 27 feet for the required front yard setback, a variance of 15 feet to the required 30-foot side yard. We do have requirements that do state that if you cluster the units, and imagine if you have 5 clustered units with shared walls, those clusters, the ordinance is intended to have those clusters measured at a 35-foot distance. So the way that the ordinance is written, it's a little challenging. We're trying to apply that provision in an instance where there's no clustering. So because they are not meeting the 35-foot distance in between two units, we are calling that out as a variance, because between each unit, the applicant is proposing a 14-foot home-to-home, side-to-side yard orientation. And then also I do want to point out that they are asking for, which is standard in a lot of our recent residential developments, is they are asking for some walls and a masonry entrance with some decorative piers. Those are considered accessory structures. Those are also required to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that being said, I do want to say that access to the site is solely being provided from Telegraph Road. This does meet the requirements as our fire marshal reviewed the plan with the applicant's intention and statement that they will be adding fire suppression to each individual unit. They are able to accommodate the requirements from our fire marshal as it relates to site access and circulation. I do want to note that in addition to our internal reviews, the applicant has provided a wetland mitigation plan. There are existing wetlands that do exist on site. They have been, we did have an opportunity to have our wetland consultant, which is Niswander Environmental, go out there, walk the property, rate and grade the existing wetlands. And then based on what is currently out there, the applicant was able to address the concerns as well as on-site mitigation utilizing the proposed detention basin to address not only required stormwater runoff, but also mitigation of the on-site wetlands. That will be a report that will definitely would be provided as part of the Planning Commission packet if this were to proceed after today to the Planning Commission. I do want to note that there also is a robust landscape plan that has been provided, offering a dense vegetative buffer around the entire external perimeter of the property. As you can see here highlighted on your screen, the applicant is attempting to be able to meet the intent of our zoning ordinance as it relates to the required plantings. This landscape plan was reviewed by Michael J. Duell Associates, who I think actually have been renamed to Duell Associates now, for conformance with the ordinance. They do note in the application that the applicant is seeking a variance for the caliper inches required to replace the existing trees. So our ordinance does speak to tree preservation, and as it pertains to that, the applicant would be required and has submitted a tree survey. As part of that tree survey, that determines the calculation, if you will, of the required replacement value. In this instance, the amount of trees and the amount of replacement of the calipers, which is the actual measurement diameter of trees, that's how we measure them. They are unable or are demonstrating based on the plan that they cannot meet the required tree replacement, and that they would be looking to install as many new healthy hardy trees to replace those trees that are being removed. In some instances, those trees that are being removed are low quality invasive landmark trees such as cottonwoods and box elders. So the applicant would have to seek a variance to not be able to replace the same amount of calipers as the amount of calipers that they were removing. I do want to note that again, this was reviewed by our various departments. And at this point, I can answer any questions, but I also think that the applicant maybe will shed some light, especially in lieu of some of the concerns that we've heard today from the residents.
Okay, that'd be great, Andrea, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello again, Tim Loughran with Robertson Brothers Homes. With me today I have Jim Clark, our CEO, as well as Jack Flynn and Michael Dillon in our land department. I know I gave this presentation, I've updated a bit, and it addresses some of the concerns you heard today, but I know you've seen it before. I think it might be valuable to go through it again just because we do have, people here, interested parties that we didn't have before, so if that's okay with you, I can answer a lot of, I think, the questions by doing that. Before I start out, just want to point out, we have had multiple meetings. We've had 2 meetings with basically all of the adjacent neighbors on either side of the street, north of us and west of us. We invited them to our, and then the HOA was notified of that and sent out letters about those meetings. We had those meetings at our design gallery, which is actually directly across the street from this site, which is pretty convenient. We had that down in our design gallery, and you know, we heard a lot of questions, a lot of issues were raised. We have addressed the plans from that first meeting, and we did present that to them, and I'll show that to you in a second here. In addition, we've had some meetings with the HOA as well. It's very difficult to meet one-on-one with 366 neighbors, as you can imagine, so we felt it was appropriate to talk to the board, which we've had a couple conversations with them. And I just want to point out, we do have it under contract. We are intent on building on the site. And as you heard today, the seller is intent on selling it to us based on the use we're proposing. So, you know, hopefully we can work out any issues that you see are still kind of valid on the plan. So if I can start with the context plan, and I showed you this last time, this is the same. We feel that there's essentially a lot of intense uses along Telegraph. Really, I don't need to tell you that, all along in Telegraph Road. I drive it every single day, so I certainly know it just as well as you do. In this case, there's particular high-density multifamily across the street to the north of us, catty corner there as well, plus office uses, and then, of course, the temple as well. So this is not a low-density, single-family site. It just isn't. And in fact, your ordinances are written in a manner that encourages density at these locations, as Andrea had brought up. So this is the site location. Of course, we do have single family around us. We're very well aware of that, and we just think we're a good transitional use. You know, we could have proposed multifamily, and that, of course, would have to go through this whole process. There could have been other things that the temple could have proposed, and I think they have had other uses in mind in the past. We believe this is the best transition use from what could be there and buffering from multifamily to the single family. So just getting into the site plan, and again, it is exactly as you saw last time. I'll point out some of the same things, but again, since we have some additional people here, I think it's important to talk about it. So this doesn't show it, but just, I think you understand already, but our proposal are for our ranch homes, single-family ranch homes. So what could be built today are 2-story homes. They could be built 35 feet to the property line. We're proposing to build single-story homes 55 feet from the property line. And I'll show you, I think, a pretty good cross-section that kind of explains what the difference is there. But I think that's important. We were closer before, and we have moved them back based on initial kind of input from the neighborhood. But again, and that does require some variances to do that. So that's part of the variance request, is we're pulling them away from the neighbors, and we think that's important. Hopefully the neighbors can see that's important as well. And again, these are single story. So instead of 55 feet, or instead of 35 feet, I'm sorry, we're proposing 35 feet. You can see the buffer. There's quite a bit of a buffer on the north and the western portions, as you can see here. We actually had less of a buffer before, and that was one of the concerns, which makes sense. It's always the concern, right, is how do we buffer to our existing neighbors. We've done a double row of plantings, so that's going to be a tree screen, which I can show you in a cross-section. We are proposing, and we've already told the HOA, we're fine with upgrading those from 8-foot minimums to 10 to 12-foot minimums. That's not in any of our requests right now, but I'm happy to add that as a condition for those buffer trees. One of the questions I just want to point out now, because I think you had asked, I forget who it was on this board, but asked the question about MDOT approval. We do have MDOT approval at this stage, and it doesn't require any additional improvements other than some striping along Telegraph. That's basically just right turn only as that lane opens up. And then, of course, after the intersection with our development, that lane, that striping goes away. So I think that's kind of a novel way to have a right turn lane, to be honest. You can see it's gated. This is similar to our Villas at Bloomfield Grove neighborhood. We think this is more important to be gated here just because of the intensity of Telegraph. But it would be very similar to what, hopefully, you're all aware of our project on Losser, just south of Square Lake, that we're just closed out of, which is a similar type of project. We feel we will act as a noise barrier to Telegraph with the addition of the 38 homes. In addition to that, we're also planting 644 trees. That is as many as we can fit on this plan, I promise you. And we are upsizing them, as I just mentioned to you, with the buffer. We're still deficient only because of the caliper requirements. But we're removing 485, but we are replacing that with 644. So you can see we're actually planting many more trees than we're taking out. It just comes down to the caliper. In fact, only 360 of those are actually regulated trees. So almost double the amount of just tree-to-tree replacement. You'll also notice a landscape berm. It's hard, you won't be able to see that on this, but we're proposing a landscape berm which meets your requirement. I believe it is 5 feet, if I'm not mistaken. But a 5-foot berm along Telegraph, which meets your ordinance there, along with the landscaping on top of it. The pond is oversized. It's bigger than you'd need for a site this big, or of this size. We had done that in conjunction with both the engineering reviewers and our environmental consultant and Nice Wander. That pond is going to act as both a detention pond and as wetland mitigation. There's really not, in fact, this wetland's not even regulated by Eagle. It is regulated by the township. They are very low quality. But since it is regulated by the township, we have worked with Nice Water pretty hard to make this basically a wetland mitigation / detention pond, which has some pluses and minuses in that respect for the neighborhood, but for our enclave at Bloomfield neighborhood. But we think that overall was a very good compromise with staff. You'll see a lot of green space on this. We've got 57% open space. I don't say that too often. That's a lot of open space. And that open space truly is open space because there are no lots. You can't have a pool back there. Nobody's going to put a tot lot or anything like that, or playground. So everything you see in green is going to be common space. It'll be there in perpetuity and maintained by the homeowners association. And then I also want to point out the buffer to the south and just the security this provides for the temple, which they had spoken, and I had mentioned it last time. Of course, hearing it from them I think was very important. So those are the things I wanted to point out that I know we talked about last time. The parallel plan, what we call a parallel plan, we wanted to demonstrate what could be built with the current one-family cluster ordinance. I mean, simply put, we do not fit into a box, and we talked about this last time. There are no ordinances where we can just say this plan fits in your township. Surprisingly, there's a lot of projects like this that are built, so that's kind of interesting that those have been built in the past, and I can show you what I'm talking about. But the fact that we are proposing detached ranches, which is, I think that is important. Attached homes really will have more of a long screen and more of a massing compared to detaching them. But also this is what the market is responding to and what the market wants. In fact, we had a project in Northville. I think I mentioned this last time. We started the duplexes. Nobody wanted the duplexes. We detached them, and the project started. So it's very important to us that they are detached. If we were to attach them, the same homes, as you can see on the top right, it would be the exact same number of units, 38. So those would be meeting your setback standards, your building separation, but we really are penalized because we're detaching them in this case with your ordinances. So that is the reason for some of the variances. In fact, the variances that we're requesting are very similar to the villas of Bloomfield Grove. They're almost the same variances as far as setbacks and those of that nature. So I'm not saying that that's justification necessarily, but through that process, it's recognized that again we did not fit in a box with that project either, and that was under a PUD, which is a separate qualification. Just a couple of things, like I mentioned, the 35-foot separation just does not work with detached. It really is not conducive. If we were to have 35 feet between units, detached, that would not be a cluster development. Same with the front setback requirement. That's just something that doesn't make sense in developing a cluster type of development. What we're trying to do is bring everything away from the neighbors on the north and west and create as much open space as we can, this is the reason why we have some of the variances we do. And the front setback sounds like a big variance. It's not. It's because of the right-of-way, the qualification of the right-of-way. This will be private street, but it's still being counted as a typical right-of-way. So we are very careful that at a minimum, we have at least 23 feet of depth for the driveways, so there's no overhang into either a sidewalk or a curb. So it's very important to us for our future home buyers, but also from you. You know, want to make sure that people aren't hanging out over sidewalks and that sort of thing with their cars. So there will be plenty of depth with those driveways as well. So that's sometimes a concern I know that townships have. I don't think I need to tell you this too much. I think you know, and we talked about it last time. The trends are that the buyers you're going to see or your future residents are going to be older. They just are. And this is not unique to Bloomfield Township. This is in every community that we build in. We're building this product in Troy. We're building it in Lyon Township. We're building it. We just finished in Bloomfield, obviously, in Northville. And this is something that a lot of townships really want to see. They want to see a ranch-style home so people can stay in their communities. They can stay. They can go to their churches. They can, stay where their friends are. Still stay in your community. They need this type of product. And you can see here, we believe you're going to need at least 70 of these, 70 new residents every year over 65. That's a lot. This will go somewhat toward meeting that need. Another thing I did want to point out was the Villas of Bloomfield Grove project we have. Everybody that came in there wanted something under $1 million. We did very well there, but they were very large homes. We sold them, some of them were over $2 million, and that was out of the price tag for a lot of people that came in. What we really like about this site is we're able to have a development where we could have a price point that's much lower. So our hope is to be under $1 million, which still sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But it will meet that band that just could not qualify for Villas of Bloomfield Grove. So we did fine there, but I would say 2/3 of the people that came in, Jim can probably correct me, we're looking for something not in the $2 million range. So that's why this is important to us, to fill that gap that we know because we're selling to it. So, and I just talk about the buyer profile. Not only is it keeping people in your community, it's also freeing up their homes, because otherwise they're just going to stay in their home, in their colonial home. This will free up for new families out that want to be in your school district. Your school district is great. It makes a lot of sense to free up that housing. So, and then as far as traffic, we don't have any traffic going to the neighborhood. It's all going to be on Telegraph, so we're not going to be impacting the neighborhood. But I think it's important to note that our traffic experts consistently say this type of product, the ranch-style home, is about just over half of the impact as a typical single family. So I've added a couple of these that I shared with you last time, and a couple more pictures. These are the cluster developments. Andrew is right. The purpose of the ordinance that you have is to direct growth in your major streets. So you can see it's Square Lake, it's mostly Telegraph. I've seen them on Long Lake. There's, what's that one, Maple. But most of them are on Telegraph. It just makes sense. This is where your ordinances are guiding growth of this nature, the cluster type of developments. So all of these are cluster developments. I'll start on the north side. I'm not going to go through all of these, obviously, but I think just of note, they're split between, I don't have any apartments on here, like traditional apartments. That would be, you've got a lot more of those too, obviously, and a lot more density with those. I'm only referring to things that we think are comparable to what we're proposing. Those are attached condos and detached condos. Generally speaking, the density is anywhere from 2 to 10 units per acre. And generally speaking, the building separation is between 10 and 15 feet. Some of them are even less, which is crazy to me. Some of them are 5 feet. So, again, these are projects that have been developed in your community under the same ordinances over time. And I don't know what kind of special provisions they had when they went through them. I can imagine it's probably variances, because we had a lot of variances. We did Villas of Bloomfield Grove. But it is a challenge to work through your ordinances. We talked about it last time. We've helped other communities develop new ordinances for this type of product. We're more than happy to work with you on things like that. That will take a long time to get through that process. So we'd like to keep moving forward as we are, but, you know, my point is a lot of other communities recognize that their ordinances don't fit, they want this type of product, and they've been very proactive in changing their ordinances for that. So something we're very familiar with. These are the ones on the southern corridor. Again, our density is under 3 units per acre. That's not an excessive density by any stretch. I would probably argue the neighborhood, Birmingham Farms, is probably in that acreage because they don't have any detention ponds, they don't have any open space. So 3 units per acre is very typical for a residential subdivision. In fact, in many respects, it's lower than what we typically build at. Some of these are 4 or 6 units per acre. So just wanted to point that out. These are realities, and we've got some pictures of that. You can see these are ones along, I think these are all on Telegraph. But Bloomfield Chase, very narrow, and really just kind of fits in. If you drive in there, you know, you can tell it's a tight community, tight-knit community. But again, these are all cluster type of developments within your township along Telegraph. And these are pictures of some of them. These are closer than we're proposing. I think the top one is Woods at Lone Pine, and the bottom one is Bloomfield Chase. So I just want to quickly point out some plan changes. You never saw the plan to the left. We made this change prior to our second meeting with the neighborhood. But we've increased, every time we've done this, we've made improvements to the plan, but we've increased quite a number of trees along the northern and western boundaries, which was important. That's something that they had said they wanted more of a buffer. We actually did, you can see they're pulled off a little bit from the property line. 2 reasons for that. First of all, there's a power line that runs along just north and west of that property line. But we also need storm in the back, which is something I'm going to touch on in a second. So you can't put trees over the storm line. So that's the reason why that's pulled back a little bit. But you can see we've added a lot more trees from what we'd originally discussed with the neighborhood. Just a couple cross sections which you've seen before. These are 8-foot trees, which do look a little small. What I'm looking at here, we propose to make those taller. Those obviously will grow over time. You can see with Villas of Bloomfield Grove, those have already grown quite a bit from when we started. But we're proposing, those are 8-foot, we'd propose 10 to 12 foot instead along those perimeters. But what's really important about this is to show, these are the actual, this house right here, north of here, is this house here. And they are higher up, and I think that's an important fact. We are lower. We will not be having any of our stormwater go on any of our neighboring property for the simple fact alone we're lower. I mean, that's water goes south. But we also are conveying actually their water. So their water's coming on our property right now. We will continue to take that water and we will put it in our pipes, and I've got an example of what that is, and into our system. But you can see we're definitely lower than them. This is that power line I had mentioned. This, and it's hard to see, but this outline here, that's what could be built literally today. Somebody could come in for a building permit and build that today. You guys wouldn't even see it. This is a 2-story home, 35 foot to the property line. What we're proposing is this ranch home at 55 feet, so another 20 feet. And then what we are proposing are decks within that, but it would be no closer than 40 feet for just the deck. You can see the impact is far less than what could actually be built today. So that's demonstrating of that. The lower section is actually, this one here is along the western perimeter. That one's about the same grade. What's interesting there is there's a berm, and I wanted to point this out that in this case there's a berm existing. The water, in this case, does not go on our property, but our water does not go on their property either. So that's what you can see is the demonstration there. And then this is that exhibit that I was mentioning, the drainage map. I've shared this with the homeowners. In fact, I think at our last homeowners meeting, I had shared this with them at our design gallery. But This is kind of cartoon-like, I get it. You don't want to see the engineering detail because that's not fun to look at. But all those arrows, that basically shows all of the drainage is coming onto our property, which makes sense. It's been sitting there, it's been taking all that water, which is why that wetland's there. This is not a traditional wooded wetland area. This was essentially farmland, and then it just became land that had been swallowed up around it and became the dumping ground for all the water over years and years and years. That's why that wetland's there. It's not a high-quality wetland. But needless to say, all that water, it has been traditionally coming on our property, and it still will. So we will take all that water, and you can see, it's hard to see, but these red lines are the storm lines in the back of the units. All that water will be conveyed into catch basins, which aren't being shown here, but they'll be conveyed into catch basins, and then they will follow through all the way to our storm system. There will be zero water from our project that will go onto Birmingham Farms. I promise you that. And first of all, I can't even design it that way. Couldn't even get it approved that way. They may have existing conditions. We will not be exacerbating any existing conditions. In this case, I wanted to point this out, obviously, just for demonstration. This is where the berm is, where the water comes back on those properties. But everything on our property will continue to stay on our property, and we'll continue to take their water into our development. Our storm pond has been sized for that additional water. The outlets for the stormwater and for the sewer, I think there's been some conversation from the neighborhood that the pipes will be going back toward that. It's not true. Our connections to both the stormwater and the sewer, and water for that matter, are all in Telegraph Road. So everything basically goes southeast and then out into Telegraph Road. We know they have existing drainage issues. We do. They've brought it to our attention. We've known that. Obviously, it's not our fault. But like I said, we will unequivocally not exacerbate anything. We've actually offered to hire on our dime an engineer to go out there and do a drainage study. And it's interesting. We actually had a project in Novi, I'm sorry to get off on a tangent, but we had a project in Novi where we had built and then the drainage got worse and it didn't make any sense to anybody. Well, it turns out that there was a basketball that was stuck offsite in a storm manhole. And nobody knew about it, and once we found it out, unplugged it, everything worked perfectly. So I'm not saying that's maybe an issue out here, but I think part of the concern is there are no detention ponds, right? There's only ditches. There's only so much that can actually be relieved on their property. But we are willing to send out an engineering consultant to take a look at that and see if we can help them out. Our project, by contrast, obviously, we're going to take everything, put it in pipes, and have a detention pond. The other thing I do want to point out is I know there's conversations about sump pumps. Wouldn't be surprised at all if sump pumps run quite a bit out here. This is not the worst we've seen. We've got very detailed borings. It's not the worst we've ever seen. Our sump pump lines will tie in directly to the storm pipes. So, if that didn't happen, the water probably could spill out into the streets and things like that. But it'll be directly into the storm pipes, which then go right into these red lines, right into the storm pond. So we're aware of the issues that are out there, and we've dealt with much worse. We're not concerned about that. We have engineers, not to mention the county and the state and the township that'll review everything. I'm almost finished, I promise you. Project summary. I won't go too in detail because I think Andrea did a really good job on this. I do show 39 total units that could be built on the project. We did that density exhibit, which should be in your package. I don't have it shown right here. But it's what Andrea was talking about, 4.5 units per acre on that first 360 feet and then 1.7 for the rest. You add that up and it is 39 total units. We're proposing 38. It'll all be the same plan, which sounds crazy, but this is the plan that this type of buyer wants to see. It's a 2,050 square foot detached ranch condominium. A couple highlights. Again, it's owner occupied. They'll be very high quality, and it's for that empty nester ranch. I did change the tax information on here. When we had this before, we basically were showing the taxes, the entire tax capture. This is just the township tax capture, which obviously that's what you're concerned with. So hopefully no harm foul on that one. And then, of course, we've got it's a walkable community. It's a housing option for residents that are vastly underserved. I said that. I didn't say it in those words. I think it's very important that everybody understands. We are trying to fill a market need that you have, and there's not many places you can do that in your township. This is one of, trust me, if there were, I'd be coming to you for that parcel as well. So we feel like this is the best place for this right now. And we've been around for 80 years, and I know that that's, shameless self-promotion, but I think it's important to know that we are here. We'll do the right thing. You've seen what we've done at Village of Bloomfield Grove. We will do the same thing here, and we're across the street from this. We have our name on it. We have our name on the building across the street. So I think it's important to know that we will stand by our product and stand by what we say here. So the conversations we've had with the HOA, that's something that I think is sincere from Robertson. So a couple of remaining slides. This is the plan, same thing that I showed you last time. It's very similar to what we're building in other communities, and I hate saying that, but again, that is the product that people want to see. That would be a snapshot of our gated entry off of Telegraph. And I think that is my...
Okay, you good, Tim?
That's my last slide. Yes,
Okay.
I'm very good. Thank you.
Just point of reference, it was brought to my attention just now that just before Tim started his presentation, we tape and broadcast these, through our cable programming. And for whatever reason, it stopped and went to another program. I just want you to know that for community benefit, they'll have to go back and watch this, unfortunately.
So we're not live anymore, but there is a recording they can watch.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Right, okay. So, Tim, let's just talk about the objections and the concerns from the Birmingham Farms with the aquifer that they're dealing with and their ditches and their water problems with 2 sump pumps in a single home having to operate. And as one gentleman said, today we had that torrential downpour that lasts, for a half hour, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
And when you say you were going to have you talked about having an engineer come out. Are you talking about having an engineer come out to Birmingham Farms to
Yes.
help figure out what their issues are?
Yeah, we've made an offer to the association to have an engineer come out and do a study. Now, I'm not saying this would be a complete detailed study of their entire drainage, but I think we could take a look at what the existing conditions are and if there's areas for improvement. So I think the challenges are, again, as I mentioned, there's no detention pond. So there's always going to be flooding because that water has nowhere to go. From my understanding, there are no storm pipes. There's just ditches. There might be some storm pipes that take them from the ditches and then put them in directly to the township's pipes. But it's totally different than what we're showing here with a detention pond that would hold that water. So typically, the water would come from the neighborhood. It would go through the pipes. It would go to a stormwater pond. It would sit there and then be released at an agricultural rate. Right now, it's all just basically sheet flowing everywhere. So I'm not saying that there's improvements that are realistic that can be done, but there might be things like I mentioned, the Novi situation where, listen, there might be situations where it could be pretty easy fix. So that's just something we'd offer to do.
But has this land then been their detention pond or their retention basin?
Maybe to some degree. I don't think all of the water comes here by any stretch for all 366 homes. But yeah, I think certainly a component of it. I don't know what the CFS volume is coming off of from the neighborhood. But yeah, I think it's kind of gone everywhere. I think it's gone to the south. I think it's gone to Telegraph,
Wherever
14
it
mile.
can find a place to go, it's just going.
Yes, of course. As far as the sump pumps, so that's more of a groundwater-related issue. We are aware of high groundwater out here. Again, that's why I mentioned it's not something that we haven't dealt with. During construction, we will put in pipes surrounding the homes, the basements, that would capture that water and then put it in down into the sump pumps, and the sump pumps go out. So our homes can handle that because they're new homes. I think when these homes were built, they weren't built to those construction standards. So I think there's some kind of disconnect on far as what was built previously and then what the types of homes we'd be building.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
Well, just following up on the water issue.
Yes.
Before going into other things. Where will the water go from the impervious surfaces, like the roof and the road? Is that also going into the drainage system?
It is, yeah. So essentially that's where that, so it's the sump pump water, but generally speaking, the majority of the water is going to be coming from the roof, from the driveways, from the sidewalks, from the pavement, and that all goes into the storm manholes and then out to the storm pond, and it sits there, and then it gets released into the Telegraph Road storm system. Does that answer the question?
It does.
Oh, I'm sorry, and this is Jim Clark, I meant to ask him to.
You know, we've heard loud and clear that they have an existing problem with water. We are downhill from them, so water is not gonna run up to their property. Where we are not downhill, that we are burned. When we put in deep sewers and deep storm lines, the water table is dropped. We are principally clay here in Bloomfield. So water gets perched and it sits up on top of the soils. When you dig a hole and you give it a relief valve, it generally lowers aquifers. If it's a stream, we're gonna have as much problem as they have, but we are not sending water to them, and we have offered to try and help them with an existing condition that they have. Now, I understand we've probably done a bad job communicating, but we've talked to everybody who will talk to us. So, and we remain committed to that, and I guess because I'm up here speaking, we are committed to this project. We are gonna buy this project, and we're gonna get something approved on here that meets with the township and the residents' desires, because that's what we are required to do. We're not going away, and it's not gonna sit as an open park. We have it under contract, and talking about buying it from an existing contract is not an appropriate discussion at this time. And we are going to develop the property in whatever form or fashion that we're able to garner approval from the governing bodies, which are you, with feedback from the neighbors, which we are trying to react to. So,
Okay,
with
thank
that,
you,
I
Jim.
think Tim's covered
Okay, thank
everything
you.
else.
So Tim, let's go back to the water again, because obviously the neighbors have a real problem up, but they're up above you.
They are.
What would you say is the topography, the drop from where Birmingham Farms would start off of, say, Maple Road, and then work its way down?
That is a good question. I know the predominant grade is from north to south. I don't know. I can find that out for sure, that information as far as
Well, what
the
I'm getting at
elevation
is that when you were showing in your development is you're not creating a berm around the property that would block surface water flowing. You're using an existing berm just on the west side, in the small area on the west side, but that's existing, and you're not changing the land to block surface water from coming down from Birmingham Farms into the enclave, for instance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, again, I don't know what the grade is from Maple. I know everything does go south, but from our northern perimeter, you can see that house is basically at 782, and then our house is down at 777. So from that distance of, let's call it 100, 200 feet, it's about 5 feet or so. So that's quite a bit of grade to move from one section to another.
And what's the grade from west to east?
So that's a little bit, that's probably about flat. We might be a little bit higher in this case on the very southern portion. I know, because I showed you this plan here, we are lower because we're taking, I only showed you this exhibit down here, but this one we're lower as well. I don't have a grade for that, but it's fairly flat on the west side from my view of the plans and my walking of the area. The north side is more of a grade, for sure.
And there's been discussion of an aquifer or
That's-
underground river or stream.
That's
You
the
mentioned
water table.
Borings too? Or?
Yeah, that's the water table I had mentioned. So it is a high water table, and we do soil borings every project we do. So we have an idea that Jim mentioned it. A lot of that water is perched to some degree. I have no doubt that there's a high water table that we'll have to deal with, but we will definitely be able to grapple with it in the field. I don't see that a concern, and there's no way that that would back up into their neighborhood. Also, it would basically go into the sump pumps, as I mentioned, and then back out to the storm pond.
And by the way, that's what the borings partially tell you.
Yeah.
Where the water table is.
Yeah, the borings will tell you what the soil makeup is, and again, it's mostly clay, as Jim mentioned, but it'll also tell you where the water table is when they first do the borings, and then after they take the borings, and you can see if it's perched, the water table will drop quite a bit. In this case, it was kind of a mixed bag, so there's both perched and there's both existing high water table that we're aware of.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, I have a few. Andrea, you made a comment that I was a little confused by. You said that if this should go on to the planning commission?
I'm sorry, point of clarification that according to our zoning ordinance, regardless of any action taken today by the design review board, your options are to either deny, approve with conditions, or approve. But regardless of the design review board's action today, the next step would be the planning commission.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that as to what we could do. And just to level set for the residents in attendance and the millions watching at home, as the supervisor likes to say.
I get all these calls?
Yeah, must be. Our function here as the 3 township officers on this board is to review site plans for design elements. We don't and have no purview over variances to the ordinances. That is the purview of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which consists of township residents that the township board has appointed to serve on that board, so they are quasi-independent, and the township board that we sit on has no authority over them. And so they are a separate body of residents that will review the variances that the developer is requesting. So what we're doing here, as Andrea said, is to approve, conditionally approve, or disapprove the application based on the design elements. And I just wanted to quote one thing here, that basically our job as the design review board is to assist the planning commission and the township board to preserve, protect, and enhance the aesthetic appeal of the township and protect property values through the application of good design principles and promote the general health, safety, and welfare of the community. Couldn't be more broad, I guess. But again, we don't have anything to do with variances, and that the ultimate decision for the acceptance and authorization of this site plan is not with the 3 of us, it's with the entire township board, which if it gets through the planning commission, which it will get, planning commission is also advisory, right? If it gets through the zoning board of appeals, then it would go to the township board, of which we sit on, but ultimately, all 7 would have a say as to whether or not there'd be approval of the,
Wetlands board.
right?
Oh, and there's a wetlands board too.
Oh, I'm sorry, the wetlands board, because there's wetlands involved here. The wetlands board would also, but that's also an advisory board, right? So the only boards that are actually, that have a gating function are the zoning board of appeals and the township board, right?
The wetlands board has to approve the permit in the wetlands.
So, okay, so that.
they have that, that's their function.
Okay, so they could not approve the wetlands, okay, I learned something new. Okay, so my questions now.
Can I add one other thing to that?
Oh, sure.
That was really useful, thank you. And there hasn't been a notice for this meeting for that very reason. We're just an advisory body, we're discussing design,
Yes, that's a good
aesthetic.
point.
But, the planning commission, there will be a notice to the community, the ZBA, there will be a notice to the community, the wetlands board, there will be a notice to the community. There are many, many opportunities to continue to discuss this and many notices that'll be occurring.
And opportunities for public comment.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and of course, we appreciate everybody who came today. Last time I said that my concern was around the density, and I did have a chance to visit some of these other communities that you've highlighted, Bloomfield Chase being one, Hickory Ridge, to see that, you know, they are very dense. Although they do predate the cluster ordinance, so they were, you know, it had those communities come before the boards today, they probably wouldn't, or would have much more difficulty getting through in the way that they turned out. But those particular communities, especially Bloomfield Chase, that has a density of 3.1 units per acre, relatively small lots, 8,000 to 12,000 square foot lots, 42 units. It is a PUD, because that was what was available at the time, condominiums, site condominiums. And those are all individual parcels, which is interesting, as opposed to this, which you're proposing would be one parcel.
Yes.
Right, okay.
It'd be, the homes would be individual parcels themselves. So they own basically the airspace of where the homes are built, and then there'll be one common element area.
So there will be,
outside
separate parcels for the homes?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so as the treasurer, I will be billing them individually for their
Correct.
property taxes. I
Correct.
won't be billing the HOA.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they will be separate parcels,
Yes.
okay.
But they just wouldn't be lots, they'd just be the size, basically the home. and
Yeah,
the- yep.
the condo parcel, right. Hickory Ridge, which is all one parcel, those are bigger homes, a little bit further apart, 2.3 units per acre. But ultimately, as I just said, the density is going to be an issue for the zoning board of appeals. That's not for us to address. I mean, I have concerns over the density, but that's, the zoning board of appeals is going to ultimately rule on that. On the trees, you mentioned 8 foot to 10 foot. So you were talking about the trees that are circumnavigating the property?
Yeah, so right now, we did them at the minimum 8 foot along the northern and western perimeter.
Right.
We're prepared to offer to make those 10 to 12 feet.
10 to 12 feet, when they're planted?
Correct,
Right.
yes.
And what kind of trees would they be?
They'd be evergreen. I don't know exactly what they picked out, but they'd be your typical.
Okay, so they would still grow?
Yes,
and-
of course,
and
yes.
thicken?
Yep, they would grow and, I mean, they'll probably be a screen when they're built, to be honest, or when they're installed, because they're so close together and they're double.
Right.
But yeah, they will grow into each other and be a complete screen.
Right, okay.
We would anticipate a revised landscape plan demonstrating Mr. Tim's statements today. So
Okay.
that would be anticipated as part of the proposal moving forward, is that landscape plan would be updated to address that update.
And it would be reviewed by our
Absolutely.
landscape architect?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Andrea, while I've got you, has our township engineering department signed off on the drainage plan?
That we do have a review. They are asking for a few revisions prior to making formal site plan approval, but I do believe that since this letter was drafted by EESD on April 28th, 2025, they will be getting a second look at revised plans in which Robertson Brothers has addressed their previous comments.
Okay.
So that's in action.
Okay, so they will, that will happen very soon?
We wouldn't bring it before any boards until we had endorsement from our
Right.
engineering
And that would
department.
also include the wetlands consultant?
Correct.
Does HRC get involved in this, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
HRC will get involved?
Correct.
To sign off on it?
Correct.
So all of this will happen?
Absolutely.
Has not happened yet?
Well, no, HRC has already reviewed it.
Okay.
Engineering has reviewed it,
Okay.
and NISWANDER. NISWANDER currently has an approval and endorses their wetland items.
Okay.
And that will be going into more detail at the Wetlands Board. Hubble, Roth, and Clark and our engineering environmental services they've already reviewed it. They've already provided their comments. They had a couple issues that Robertson Brother has responded to. I just have not to date received the updated memo and review from those entities, but those would be forthcoming and would be part of any future planning commission packet.
Right, okay. And the fire marshal has signed off based on the fact that they're going to put sprinklers or whatever
Correct.
prevention devices in each of the homes?
Yes, and then noting that the gates to the community would have to be equipped with the Knox box switch system. So yes, they have signed off and have provided a memo with such comments.
Right. Okay. Let me see what other questions I had here. Understood which variances would be required. I did also get a chance to drive through the villages at Bloomfield Grove, is that what it?
Bloomfield Grove, yes.
Bloomfield Grove. Very well done. I mean, I remember approving that project. It was controversial at the time. But I think it has turned out really well. And you guys definitely landscaped it very well. So I believe you when you say that you're going to bring
Yes.
that same level of attention
We will,
to this
100%.
project.
Yes, thank you.
So it was a good-looking project, the way it turned out. And are there sidewalks internal here?
So the sidewalks you can see here, we have sidewalks along this internal area here. Typically, we actually don't put in sidewalks, and that's just because this is not a high-speed road, right? It's a very low-travel road to begin with. Generally, they walk in the roads. We've added the sidewalk here because I think that was a comment by, from planning. In order to put a sidewalk on the exterior, we'd have to push those units closer to the property line. We felt it was a much better situation to do this and have the sidewalk. If they want to use the sidewalk, they can obviously cross the street and then walk out.
Yeah,
and
so
it does connect.
so there's a sidewalk on the little island there.
Correct.
That goes all the way around.
And it connects to Telegraph, yes.
And it connects to the sidewalk that's on Telegraph.
Correct, yes.
Right, which goes all the way up and down.
Yes,
So,
that's right.
People that are here could walk up to Bloomfield Plaza, go to dinner.
Yes, 100%.
Right. Go to Trader Joe's, go to Nino's, whatever. Okay, I think those are all of my questions that I had. From a design perspective, other than the density issue, which we've already talked about, I think it looks great. I think it looks nice. Obviously, we've got some concerns surrounding the stormwater, you got a handful of variances that you'll have to get. I think that's where I'm at. I mean, you guys have anything else?
Martin?
Anything I'm forgetting?
I don't know, that's a pretty good summary of the things we talked about
Yeah,
last
I mean,
time.
there's some open items and there's some things that are outside of our purview right now. Obviously, when it comes back to the township board in a couple of months, we'll have another bite at the apple, but.
Yeah, so after this, regardless of what as soon as we act, it's eligible to go to the planning commission. No matter what action we take, you can take this to the planning commission or not, up to you.
Yeah.
But I think I heard pretty clearly you intend to proceed.
Yes.
Ultimately, the Board of Trustees will see this as a site plan. Will it be a special land use too?
No.
No, just a site plan, and they'll ultimately have the decision to make. And, as Michael nicely summarized, your job is to decide whether there's a market, for this, and that's your space. Our job is to decide whether or not this fits within the aesthetic of the township, preserves values here, preserves the health and welfare of the community, but basically the overall fit. The concern I had before remains the same, which is the clustering option that's being proposed. Essentially, the exceptions that will swallow the rule. It's not a cluster proposal. There isn't a cluster. The alternative is not a cluster. The examples you provided up the road are condos. They're not cluster developments either. So, yes, the density is at least as dense as these, but they're just really not apples to apples because they were passed in the 90s, a different master plan, a different ordinance, and not a cluster option. I'm not familiar with a cluster option. We've been looking, that has been built. But, and I was not here, of course, in the early 2000s when the new master plan was adopted. But what I did learn is that a couple of those condos with very tight, space didn't need a variance for, for the density. But today they would. So, I infer from that the master plan says that, yes, those were built before, but presently the community's focus is on something less dense when it comes to this kind of a proposal. One way, however, to get around that would be a cluster. But cluster requires a forward part with a more dense and a less dense part at the back that transitions from front to back. The current proposal is just nowhere near that type of thing, and I just don't see how how you can make this square peg fit that round hole. As you probably have nailed it as far as the market goes, but I just don't see how it fits the aesthetic. It conforms with the intents of our master plan, as you've designed it. And all the changes you've asked for, which will be up to the ZBA to decide about those, in my mind, they essentially just swallow the rule completely. That there's nothing that it's a whole other thing instead of what is being asked, which is a cluster option. So I'd prefer you come up with a plan that fits strategic, within the intent of one of the designs that have been proposed within the zoning rules. That are in the master plan as we've designed. The master plan is going to be, subject for review in a few years, and we'll be looking at new options, and maybe an amendment at that time will make a lot of sense for something like this, but it doesn't fit now, as I see it, from the aesthetic, the community expectations, the way that's been expressed in the master plan. So, I mean, again, the variances, someone else will talk about that, but the board too will eventually get a chance to look at the aesthetic and whether it's a fit for the community and make a decision on that. That's, so. But today, that's how I think, that's what I think about it. I'm unconvinced based on the examples you provided or the description that this square peg can fit within any of the requirements we have in the township. And so I don't think it fits with the aesthetic. That's consistent with the township.
The only thing, if I could add to that, and I appreciate your thoughts, and I agree with them. I mostly agree with them. I said this last time, we came in here, we think this plan fits in your community. And I think you'd probably agree with that. It just doesn't fit with your ordinances. And when we met with Patty and Andrea, that's the first thing we said. And it was the same thing with Village of Bloomfield Grove, which was under PUD. Now, PUD has other requirements that this would not fall under. So this was the, I don't want to say path of least resistance. This was what we all kind of came up with as the best ordinance to pursue for this, knowing that there'd be variances. When we did the Village of Bloomfield Grove, I remember Jim Clark and I came to the ZBA. We had 18 ZBA requests, 18 variances. I hate going to the ZBA because it's a very high level that you have to meet. We got all 18 approved, and they're very similar to this. So I don't want to say that's just how the township has operated. I think you would have been better served to have ordinances that would allow something like this, because I think this is good for the community. And I don't know if I'm hearing anything that this is not an appropriate use. It just doesn't fit into the box, and that's not really our fault.
Just gotta say, I mean, that is the community's expression of what's appropriate, though. The master plan and the zoning rules are what the community's expressed, and part of my job would be to follow that or have a good reason why I'm going to deviate from what the community says they expect.
And you think this is different than the other examples that we've provided?
It is. I think so. I'm open to be convinced otherwise, but I haven't found an example that I could say, yeah, this is apples to apples. I want to treat this consistent with others, no doubt. but, I'm yet to see that.
I would say it's similar to our Bloomfield Grove in addition to, Bloomfield, these are what I think we consider our examples of a very similar type of project. So, we can certainly disagree on that, but I think unless you're looking at it a very discerning lens, we're proposing exactly what you have up and down Telegraph. So that's how we look at it.
But, yeah, they are. What's changed, though, is the master plan changed.
Understood.
And the rules changed, which is an expression of what the community was looking for, which is, I think, more green space, not the same or less.
Well, Martin, just to follow up on that, I agree that the ordinances are an expression of what the community wants. I think that, the master plan and the zoning ordinances are only updated, once every 10 years? 20 years?
We did a review, 2 years ago?
We do periodic updates, but a full override.
I think we did a review, I want to say, my first or second year on the board, so 16 or 17?
I believe there was one in 17. There's been to speak to that, there's been a lot of accepting of the current plan, which has met the statute in terms of updating. That is why we're embarking on a full rewrite, is because we have not done a full rewrite since, I think, 2000.
Right, so
if I
we're talking
remember correctly.
25 years.
Correct.
It hasn't been updated.
So correct, to that point,
But
there hasn't
the
been a
plan
full.
now is to end of 2026 into 2027.
Correct.
Is to work on updating our complete master plan.
Which will absolutely incorporate
Yeah.
a lot of public input to allow us to really get a more updated view of the desires and intentions of township residents.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's great, well and good, we need to do that. Doesn't
Yeah.
help these guys, right? So, if we were rewriting it today, I would look at it and say, I like the structure of this development. I think we should make this viable within our ordinance. My only concern would be the density. And, if, again, I'm not a developer, I'm not in the business of building homes, but, so it's easy for me to say, well, let's just take 3 or 4 of these houses out, spread them out a little bit, have a little more green space. To me, that would be much more palatable, as opposed to the way our zoning ordinance is currently written, which is, let's cluster 24 of them in the first 360 feet from Telegraph, and then have a few, dotting the back of the property. I don't like the look of that cluster development. Personally, I wouldn't support that. And so, but unfortunately, that's the way the ordinance is written today, and so.
Right, if they brought a cluster proposal, we really have nothing to say about it.
Well, I wouldn't like it, but we'd
But
have
it
to
would
take,
meet the-
we'd have to
right.
take it because it would meet the ordinance. And that's the way the ordinance is written today, and so that's why next year's master plan rewrite is gonna be so crucial to, to modernize and sort of harmonize what we've got currently developed and where we see our community going over the next 10, 20 years, right? We've got parts, we're dealing with other parts of the township, Research Park and otherwise that are, we're struggling with. And that's unfortunately because ordinances are the way they were and they've been that way because the master plan has been that way for 25 years. So, again, we're not, my preference would be to open it up, have a little bit more green space, a little bit less impermeable area. But I generally like the design, and I do agree that the product fits what we need in the community and can help keep residents who want to stay in the community, but, can't or don't want to live in, the bigger houses, the colonials and whatnot. But, so that's just my opinion, okay? But again, in terms of the variance to the ordinance, that's not within our purview right now. That's the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so they're, they'll opine on that and they'll make a decision one way or the other. So, that's where I'm at on it. But from a design perspective, which is what we're really here to talk about, I like the design. I think the plan, looks good. Again, do I wish there were 4 or 5 fewer houses? Yes, but overall, I think it's a good design, and, so unless there's other concerns or questions, then
Could I be allowed to speak to the density issue? Because you
can speak to whatever you want.
I hear you, and I do understand your thoughts on it. From opening it up, I mean, we've got 57% open space. That is far more than I would think any other. I think it's more than we had at Bloomfield Grove, to be honest. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a lot. That's more than we typically do.
Yeah, but most of that is not usable space.
And that's
Right.
fine, but it is still.
You've got a little bit of area here on the island. I mean, there's a lot of trees on it, but I assume that there's spaces there that you could theoretically throw some benches or picnic tables or whatever you're gonna do, but generally speaking, there's not a lot of usable open space.
And I guess my other thought, and you kind of just answered it there, but just to pick off a couple of units doesn't really, the project is the project. It is what it is. And it doesn't really change what this project is by removing, say, 3, 4 units. Obviously, it hurts our bottom line. It hurts the seller as far as, the value of the property. But from a traffic standpoint, it's going to mean zero.
Oh, yeah.
Even from a visual perspective, since we're going to have so many trees and we're a ranch community, the impact would be zero. So we're just kind of removing units to say, let's just remove units because we think it's too many. So, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but from our perspective, because I deal with this a lot, and it's always, well, why don't you just remove a few units and we'll all be happy. Ultimately, it's the same project. You're not accomplishing anything by doing that. So I hear what you're saying as far as if it frees up a space that there could be some combined or some open area. We could actually do that. We could have that whole area. We had it between 33 and 38. We had that activated, but we needed room for the trees. And that's, honestly, if I remove a couple, we're probably gonna have to put trees in it. So it's, because we're asking a variance for that. So I don't know what you're gonna get by just removing units for the sake of removing units. So I'll leave it at that, because I appreciate your comments.
I mean, fair, but I'm not suggesting that we remove them for the sake of removing them. I'm just, I'm a businessman from my previous life, so I'm not suggesting that you just do that. I mean, I think that if you reduce the density, reduce the impermeable space, and have more green space, that I think that would make the plan look better. That's my personal opinion. But at the end of the day, you're right. Your plan is your plan. Our job is to opine as to whether or not, from a design perspective, this looks good and meets community standards, and then the zoning board of appeals will have their input, the wetlands board will have their input, planning commission, and then ultimately the township board, where the 3 of us sit with 4 other trustees, will have the final say. So,
This does not approve the project. This allows the project to move forward for public hearings.
Right.
Public hearings.
Right.
So having said what we've said, I like the fact that they're going to hire an engineer to help Birmingham Farms try and figure out your water problem. I also recognize the HOA, even though there's some in the neighborhood that object to it, the HOA isn't of support of this. And they're trying to be good neighbors. And Robertson Brothers has an agreement with Temple Bethel to buy the property, and they're going to develop it one way or another. So I think we have to let it go through the process. I think, like you said, it's to review the design and the look, but not the other issues. And we do need to update our master plan, and it's on the schedule, and we're going to get at that at the end of 2026. So if anybody would like to make a motion, whether it's to decline this or move it forward with, opinions or thoughts.
I have one more question, and then I would comment on two, but maybe Michael got one.
Well, I was going to make a motion, but if you have a comment or question, go ahead.
The one thing that I have no idea, but the question's been brought up about noise being a concern. And is there a way to sort of predict or measure that? I mean, the forested area now blocks some noise, probably more in the summer than the winter. The proposed project will block noise too, maybe more, maybe less, but probably more consistent. Is there any way to do a look at that and say, neighbors, I understand your concern, but we've we have a noise study done and have addressed this, that in fact there would be less noise, not more, or that would probably be something that would be interesting to folks. I don't even know if it's possible. But.
I think it's possible to some degree. We've used Colanos to do noise studies. It's more directly related to a parcel, like say next to an industrial needing a wall, that sort of thing. But I think for sure I can contact them and see what they would suggest, and I think they could put something together that would make sense.
That might be interesting if you're willing to. And noise is funny. I mean, I live, I live in a neighborhood that's like halfway between Telegraph and Franklin Road, and where I live, there's so much noise. If I walk closer, there's actually less noise.
Yeah.
And I walk, so the noise really varies. The other thing I want to do is just follow on with Supervisor McCready mentioned, which is, I do have to commend you. You guys obviously have a track record that's stellar. Not just here specifically here in the township. I want to mention, but beyond that, you're a good community member, residents that are great neighbors too, and you've already demonstrated a good track record of collaboration with the neighbors.
Yes.
So thank you for those things. I know those will continue, and the one I do want to point out too and comment on was the water study for the neighborhood, or the drainage study. Another thing that a lot of people don't know is that when all these neighborhoods were built, they all had a stormwater retention system built into them, like you're building one. It will be owned by the condo development. The stormwater system in Birmingham Grove or Birmingham Farms was also built by the developer and then deeded to the HOA. Most neighborhoods don't know that. Most neighborhoods have done nothing to maintain their drainage systems. There may be a basketball somewhere, but that's just the reality of it. It probably doesn't operate as designed because it hasn't been maintained. My neighborhood drainage system hasn't been maintained. Almost everybody's neighborhood system hasn't been maintained, which is part of the reason why the township has a lot of information on our website about drainage, and we know this is a growing problem, and I got to urge everybody to look at their drainage systems that their neighborhoods designed. People probably dug up the berms and removed things and put barriers where there shouldn't have been barriers, and water's not draining as fast as it should be draining. And that's not going to be, it's not your fault, it's not the township's fault, it's just the way the world happens, and ultimately it's up to the communities to manage the water in their community themselves. Now, if it were a city's different, but a township, that's a resident issue. So, thanks for being here, thanks for coming twice.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. Good presentation.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then let's move on. So, under the way that the ordinance works, with what we have to do, I'm going to move that we conditionally approve the application. The conditions are, number one, that the project will have to obtain all of the required variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which will include density, setbacks, acreage, et cetera. Number two, approval of the drainage plan by our Engineering and Environmental Services Department and our wetlands consultant. Number three, approval of the township's landscape architect of the landscape plan and the revised landscape plan that'll be forthcoming, which will include a calculation of the tree remediation, and I assume that if they don't meet the calipers, then that they would make a contribution to the Woodlands Trust Fund. Is that how that would work?
That is correct. That is an avenue that they could take, correct?
Okay. So a calculation of that, so we understand what the tree remediation would need to look like. And number four, that they move forward in providing an engineering study to the Birmingham Farms HOA to address the drainage issues in the neighborhood. And I would also like the record to reflect the concern of this board regarding the density of the project overall and the compliance with the spirit of the cluster ordinance. I think that will satisfy the clerk, maybe. But I think that's it. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm willing to vote for this at this point in time to move it along the process, but my concerns are my concerns, and if unaddressed, will be, raised at the Board of Trustee level, which, so
Okay.
we'll see it again.
So, do you support it?
I support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Passes, okay. All right, and then we did, obviously, 1 and 2 at the same time there.
I think 2 is separate.
Is 2
2 is
separate?
separate,
Okay, so back to number 2, 7400 Telegraph Road, Temple Bethel.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate your feedback. This is just the beginning.
Okay, I'm just going to run through briefly the proposal as it relates to Temple Bethel's desire to split a portion of their property to allow for, let me pull up the plan here. Okay, I think we're all familiar with the location. Okay, so highlighted on your screen, you can see a proposed lot line adjustment, if you will, between the northern portion of Temple Bethel located at 7400 Telegraph. Temple Bethel, represented by Steve Weiner, is seeking approval to subdivide the existing Temple Bethel property to create a new single-family residential development named the Enclave. The applicant for the Enclave development is seeking to develop the 12.83 acres that we just discussed for the 38-unit single-family residential lots. The remaining 20.828 acres of Temple Bethel will maintain the existing temple and parking area. The northernmost portion, which is being proposed to be incorporated into the northern portion for the development of the Enclave, is comprised of woodlands and basketball courts. Those basketball courts would be removed. So I just want to note, anytime we have a request, when we've got an overall, we're looking at both of these as 2 separate site plans, because of course the impact of the potential Enclave development is going to change the lot line of the existing Temple Bethel. So I can answer any questions. I think that everybody's pretty well versed on what the proposal is. I just want to make sure that if we're moving along the Enclave project, it would make sense that we're processing these site plans together.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. There's a ingress from Telegraph that abuts what would be the Enclave property. It's currently blocked off. Why are they keeping that? Do you know?
That would be a great question for representatives from the temple, because we did have would you be prepared to speak on that? If you would like to come up? Yeah, because we did have a discussion. That was quite a discussion at the beginning of the project.
Right.
Where we were looking to find an opportunity to maybe close out a curb cut. However, it's something that, as we've learned throughout the project, was very important on behalf of the temple, that was maintained.
Okay.
So I think the understanding of that, it's a great question. I bet a representative from the temple would be better to answer that.
Thank you very much. Need my address again?
We got you.
Thanks. That access is necessary, obviously, for servicing the detention pond. That will be necessary for the equipment and the access and whatever is done in maintaining it. In the fall, during the high holiday period, we will reopen that. We're going to use some other more permanent type system, but right now that's just the traffic cones that have been used there. Prior to that, of course, it was used, but things have happened in the world, as you undoubtedly know, and that's basically it.
Okay, thank you.
I know I used to pick up my kids from the bus stop right there when the buses came in.
Yes, good point. Thank you.
I was curious, because from a security standpoint, I would think, I don't know why you'd want to limit the ingress from, use the 14-mile entrance, but
Right.
I get it. It's,
Hopefully the world will hopefully improve.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? So the recommendation or the consideration before the board would be to move this on, or approve or deny.
Okay, wonderful. All right.
I would move that we approve the application.
Support.
All in
And-
favor?
And submit it to the Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay, Planning Commission.
Anything else we need to add in there, Andrea?
No, I think we're good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 3-0. Okay, thank you. And moving on to general business, recent review board approvals we need to cover. I think we're good. And our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July the 2nd at 2 o'clock. Be there or be square. All right? We move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Congratulations.